The subject of today's lecture is presentational aids, things that you use to enhance your presentation. Now, most trainings that happen in person anyway have a primary medium, a channel that your training goes through, and that is the spoken word. We usually tell people what we want them to know, just like right now. My primary message is that which I'm saying to you. But it's important to think strategically about presentational aids. Now, it's not hard to imagine why presentational aids are good. Other media, other channels, another different kind of learning. It's a form of reiteration. It can engage the audience. There are all sorts of reasons that presentational aids are good. But there are also ways in which presentational aids can be very bad, that they can literally distract or do the opposite of aid. They can detract from your training, from your presentation. So your book talks pretty well about some of the highs and lows of different types of presentational aids, varying from handouts to videos to PowerPoints and things like this. So what I want to do is I want to focus on a particular area of presentation that I see people messing up a whole lot, and that is PowerPoint or ongoing visual aids while someone is speaking. And the most important learning concerning PowerPoint is this, actually concerning any presentational aid. You need to think very carefully about what your spoken or your verbal message is and what the projected or your visual message is. And to use that, I have a real example of a PowerPoint that I had to make in class recently. So we were working in groups and we were asked to do PowerPoints. And this is the PowerPoint slide that one of my group members sent to me as her suggestion. Take a moment, look at it. I realize it's a little hard to read through the video, but it's a little hard to read even when it's projected. So what's wrong with this picture, right? Well, she's got a picture, so that's exciting. But looking at that, you have very little idea of what is going on. Now, to give you some context, this presentation is on social entrepreneurs, and this slide is supposed to talk about the innovation of this guy right here, whose name is Fabio Rosa. And he changed the way that Brazilian farmers irrigated their rice. He got them access to electricity, and he made it possible for them to continue to live in the country. So here are her two slides covering this situation. Now, what's wrong with this? Part of the problem is that what she's going to say is right here. This is something that she'll probably want to say. This is something that she'll probably want to say. What she's basically done is typed out her outline and projected it up on the screen for everyone to read. Now, this may not be inappropriate if somebody needs absolutely word for word the information that you're saying, but a lot of times that's not the case. They need general concepts. And so this is what I would describe as the outline approach to PowerPoint. And they kind of encourage it even when you open a new PowerPoint slide. Sometimes it just comes up with the bullet points right there in the text box in the main body of the thing. It really encourages you actually to make bad slides. So here it is. Now, what she's trying to say is that this guy came up with a series of innovations, and he kind of lined up excuse me, a way to make these people's lives more livable. And actually, she has a really good section right in here, which is these short equations that kind of sum up everything that she's trying to say. So I simplify. I break down this slide into the situation as it was before compared to the situation as it was after. So she can read this out loud, or alternatively, she can talk, and you are capable actually of reading this. So we've got wealthy landowners setting high prices on water, equal plus low profitability. It means people leave the city, they're moving away. I keep her picture. And so here are Rosa's innovation. Electricity, wells, and pumps equals cheap irrigation, and this is a technical term for how to grow rice, which she'll address in her presentation, and there is the overall outcome. Now, do these slides make sense without her presentation? Absolutely not. But the truth is, that's a good thing. You don't want your presentation to run without you. You don't want your visual aid to make sense with you not there. It's aiding you in your effort. So, the first rule of making PowerPoints is try to cut the words as much as possible and make it so that you can communicate in a visual way instead of a written way the thing that you're trying to say. Let me give you another example. So, one of the things that we had to present about was this particular social entrepreneur who, instead of selling medical items at a high profit to a very small number of people, he made as many ways as he could cut costs and reduce the price as much as possible so that he could sell them to people who made less than $1,000 a year. So he was looking for ultra low costs for medical items. So the initial slide that I got for that presentation was something like the one before, just kind of chock full of words. And so my interpretation of that situation is this. So we have medical manufacturing the old way. So here's a giant profit margin, right? You're making a lot of money off of each unit sold, times a tiny population equals profit. And his new way, more or less, is to reverse that. So even with a tiny profit margin, if you can reach out to a larger, poorer population, you still end up with a profit. Now these slides, they don't need a lot of explaining. That's pretty straightforward, and as you're going along and explaining it, you're not actually reading off the slide. The slide makes that flip visually obvious. You go from the one to the other, and suddenly you get in a real straightforward way what is going on. But it's a visual message instead of a spoken message. I don't really know how I can emphasize this enough, but if you can take off an unnecessary word from a PowerPoint slide, do it. The fewest number of words is generally the best, because you don't want it to be distracting. Now, there are a handful of situations where that's not true, but generally that's a pretty good goal. Now, if you want a lot of words up on a slide, consider the value of word art. So this is called a Wordle. This is called a Wordle. And again, it might be sort of difficult to read through the video camera. But one of the things that you can do is you can take all of the words in a Word document and you can dump them into a program, and they create fairly cool word art. Now this is a giant mess, but it's actually supposed to be a giant mess, and that's the kind of point. And as you read through it, it doesn't actually distract your mind that much to have those words jump out at you. I can continue talking, you can stare at the word art, and it can still continue to make sense. Another thing that it's worth considering is that when you have a complex situation going on, like, say, the distribution process of an organization, consider trying to map things out conceptually. Now, this slide, again, it doesn't make any sense without a user or a presenter, but a presenter can fairly easily move through this slide and say, okay, we've got this organization called Project Impact. It draws its best practices from the medical industry, but no, it doesn't give anything back to them. Now, it networks with hospitals by giving them the devices, and then the hospitals are the ones who actually distribute it to the people who don't make very much money. Now, they're still paying for it. It's a differential pricing, so they're paying what they want, and that gets paid to the hospital, which in turn goes back to Project Impact. Now, this way of visualizing something, I could have written that all out. That whole process I could have put up on the screen. I could have, say, done a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But in this way, it remains visible. And as you talk, every single one of your words offers more context and an explanation. And it lays out your idea in a way that is easier accomplished with the visual than if it were just with your words alone. And so, I can go through and study these 3 organizations, and then, I can screen copy And this is a lot of information right here, but I can compare these three organizations, next to each other. And if I've done a good job explaining what they meant the entire time, when I lay them out, I can start to make meaningful comparisons. And it almost even invites the audience to say, oh, wow, isn't that interesting? This one right here, so here are the poor, and here are the disabled. These two have arrows back and forth between the disabled, and this one only has the one-way arrow. Why is that different? How does that make that organization different? Whatever. It makes the differences, right, more obvious. Anyway, generally, there is an impulse to match your visual message with your verbal message, and I really, really suggest against it. PowerPoint is a really powerful tool. It, for no cost, can create a giant picture up on a screen that literally hundreds of thousands of people could appreciate if you've got the right projecting. If you think about trying to do that with the poster boards of the past, right? Poster boards, you got to buy the stuff, you got to print it out, you're cutting stuff, you're gluing stuff. It was a giant pain in the butt. So PowerPoint is really powerful. It's awesome. It's an awesome tool, but it's best to use them in ways that are actually awesome. So consider doing things with your PowerPoint that you cannot do with your words. Of course, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes just putting up a picture to kind of capture a mood or a feeling that you're going for that isn't directly explaining any particular thing, but kind of captures an overall image, that's a fine way to use PowerPoint. Another thing that you can do is you can use it to kind of lay out schema or graphs to capture a lot of numerical data in a way that would be very difficult to describe. Say like rainfall, that would be an annoying thing to try to verbalize, but you could throw up a chart of rainfall, and pretty quickly, if you organize the data right, you can visualize things, and you can notice, wow, rainfall tracked per month over periods of years very quickly shows me which months it rains the most in, because you can see the columns and be like, oh yeah, duh. I'm noticing that in this part of the world there's a lot of rain, here in the springtime, and then some rain, precipitation in the winter, but not a lot in the summer. And that you could say, but then the visual message is reinforcing that. Also, use your PowerPoint to lay out organizations, to lay out processes. Sometimes, particularly when dealing with skills like communication, there are processes. They're cyclical. So the relationship between, say, disclosure and liking is a fairly complex, what's the word I'm looking for? Co-constructive relationship. We tend to tell people that we like things about ourselves. We tend to disclose to people that we like, but through disclosure we can come to like people more. So there's this intricate interrelationship. And showing someone that in a visual way demonstrates it in a way that is difficult to capture with your words. So the major learnings from this video: 1, try to limit the words that you put on a PowerPoint slide. 2, be strategic about what your visual image and your spoken image is. Don't let them overlap, because the one will distract from the other. And 3, use your visual image to accomplish things that you can't otherwise accomplish with your spoken word. Make things obvious, make things apparent, make things bold. That's what you can do with your visual images. And trust me, your trainees will really appreciate it, because we've all been through one too many classrooms or training sessions where all they did was copy and paste their outline straight up into the PowerPoint. Now, I will, in closing, add the caveat that there are some professions and settings that really expect the outline format, which is a terrible shame. But find out if there's an expectation that you have that outline, and then you can put it up if that's what is really necessary. But think even about maybe instead of an outline slide or just putting up your entire outline, a simple half-page handout that has the outline in front of them, so that they can kind of keep track of breaks and and things like that. That's also helpful. Anyway, that might be more effective than just one slide in the beginning or the entire time, only your outline. So that's what I have to say. Limit your words, be strategic with your visual and your vocal messages, and try to do with your PowerPoint what you cannot do with your voice. That's it.